Chapter 1. The Masquerade. The Ashworth Masquerade was the kind of party Bree Holloway was not supposed to be at. She was a +1 to a +1. Her college roommate's boyfriend's cousin had an invitation with a guest allowance, and the guest had a guest. And by the time the chain of social obligation reached Bree, the connection to anyone who actually belonged at the Ashworth estate was so tenuous it was practically theoretical. But the champagne was free, the masks were provided at the door, and Bree Holloway had not had a night off in 3 weeks. She took a mask. She took a glass. She stood near the East Salon and tried to look like she had opinions about the wallpaper. "It's hideous," said a voice behind her. She turned. The man was tall, dark-haired, and wearing a mask that covered the upper half of his face. Below the mask, a jaw that could have been carved by someone with strong opinions about geometry. A mouth that was not smiling but looked like it was considering it. "The wallpaper," he said. "You were staring at it." I was trying to decide if it was intentionally ugly or accidentally ugly. Intentionally. It was commissioned in 1796 by a man with more money than taste. I've been told it's historically significant. Historically significant ugly is still ugly. That is exactly what I said, in 1803. She blinked. In 1803? Figure of speech. She studied him. Something about the way he stood was odd. Not awkward, too still. The kind of still that most people couldn't sustain. The posture of someone who had been taught composure so long ago that it had become structural. "I'm Bree," she said. "I know." "You know?" "Your name tag, from the entrance table." She looked down. The adhesive name tag from the guest registration was still stuck to the strap of her purse. Bree, in her own handwriting. She'd forgotten to remove it. "That's embarrassing," she said. "It's practical. I have been at this party for 40 minutes and you are the first person whose name I actually know." "You don't know anyone here?" Something shifted behind the mask. Not discomfort, something older, something like amusement at a joke she hadn't told yet. "I know everyone here," he said. "I simply don't know their names." She laughed, the sharp, surprised, slightly too loud laugh that she'd spent her adult life trying to soften in professional settings, at dinner parties, in every room where being too much was the thing she was most afraid of being. He went still when she laughed, stiller than before. Not frozen, held. As though something he'd been waiting for had arrived, and he was afraid of startling it. "You have a good laugh," he said. "I've been told it's a lot." "By whom?" "By everyone." "Everyone is wrong." She looked at him. He looked at her. The champagne was a Krug 2008, and it was extraordinary. And when she said it was fine, I guess, he blinked in a way that suggested no one had ever called a Krug 2008 fine, I guess, in his presence before. They talked for 3 hours. Not about anything important, or rather, about things that only become important when you're saying them to someone who is actually listening. She told him about her job, event coordination, the specific chaos of making other people's important nights run smoothly while standing near the service corridor. He told her about his work. Administration, he said, with a vagueness she found charming rather than suspicious, which was a mistake she would fully appreciate later. They argued about jazz. It started because the band was playing and she mentioned Coltrane, and he said something about Kind of Blue that was so confidently wrong that she forgot she was a +1 to a +1 at a party she wasn't supposed to be at, and told a stranger that his taste in music was objectively incorrect. "Objectively," he repeated. "Objectively. You understand that music is, by definition, subjective. Not when you're this wrong about it. I have studied modal jazz for," he stopped, recalibrated, "a very long time. And in that very long time, you've developed a confidently incorrect understanding of what Coltrane was trying to do after 1960? After 1960, Coltrane abandoned structure. After 1960, Coltrane stopped pretending structure was the point." He stared at her. She watched something happen behind the mask. Surprise, then a recalibration. Then something that looked, if she was reading it right, like delight. That is the most interesting thing anyone has said to me at this party. That's a low bar. It is. These people are very boring. They have been boring for, he caught himself again, a long time. You keep doing that. Doing what? Starting to say something specific and then pulling back to a long time. Like you're editing yourself. I am editing myself. Why? Because the unedited version would be alarming. She sipped her champagne. Try me. He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, less polished, more precise. No one has told me I was wrong about anything in approximately 200 years, he said. The band has been playing the wrong Coltrane all evening, and I have been silently furious about it. And you are the first person in this room who has noticed. And you noticed within 11 minutes of arriving, and I find that extraordinary. How do you know I arrived 11 minutes ago? I noticed. You noticed a stranger arriving at a party? I noticed you. She should have found that creepy. She didn't. Something about the way he said it, not possessive, not predatory, but simply factual, as though noticing her had been involuntary, the way someone notices a door opening in a quiet room. The champagne is absurd, by the way, she said. It's a Krug 2008. I know what it is. It's still absurd. Who serves a Krug at a party where half the guests are drinking it like water? Someone with more money than sense. You say that about a lot of things. The wallpaper, the champagne, the guests. I say it about most things. Except the jazz. Except the jazz, he agreed. About the jazz, I am passionate. Passionately wrong. You are relentless. I'm right. He laughed, a quiet sound, almost involuntary, as though the mechanism for it had been disused so long it surprised him to discover it still worked. They were standing close. She could feel something, not heat exactly, the absence of it. The air around him was cooler than the room, a specific radius of chill that she registered without understanding. You're cold, she said. I run cool. Are you sick? I am extremely healthy. Nobody who is extremely healthy is this cold in a room full of people. You're standing very close to me to have noticed. You're deflecting. I am deflecting. You are correct. At approximately 11:47, near the East Terrace, she kissed him. She didn't decide to do it. She was mid-sentence, something about the bridge on a love supreme, something she felt strongly about, and he was listening with his whole body, the way nobody ever listened, the way that made her feel like the most important sound in the room, and she just stopped talking and closed the distance and kissed him. His mouth was cold. Not unpleasantly, like pressing your lips to something that existed at a different temperature than the rest of the world. His hands came to her waist, careful, precise, the way someone holds something they are deciding not to break. She felt the restraint in his fingers. Not hesitation, control. The kind of control that goes deeper than choice, that lives in the architecture of what someone is. When she pulled back, his eyes, visible below the mask, looked different, darker than they'd been, with a ring of amber at the edges that she was almost certain hadn't been there before. Your eyes, she said. It's the light. It's not the light. He didn't answer. Something in the silence was louder than the party behind them. Louder than the band playing the wrong Coltrane. Louder than the champagne and the wallpaper and the masks. Something old and careful and hungry. She was afraid, not of him, of the size of what she was feeling, of how fast it had happened, of the particular terror of being seen by someone who seemed to actually see, and the knowledge that if she stayed, she would have to be seen all the way through. She pulled a cocktail napkin from the table beside them, wrote her phone number, no name, pressed it into his hand. What is this? He said. My number. And your name? You already have that. It's on my purse. Bree. Just Bree? Just Bree. She stepped back. Call me. She left. 11:53. Before she could change her mind. Before he could ask her to stay, because she could feel the word forming in his mouth. And if he said it, she would. And she wasn't ready. She walked through the estate, past the coat check where she forgot her wrap, past the registration table, past the cascading chain of +1s that had brought her here, and out into the night. Behind her, in the east salon, a man in a mask stood very still and held a cocktail napkin with a phone number and no name, and did not move for a long time. Chapter 2. The Initiative. The morning after the masquerade, Elias Crane, sovereign of the night court, sat at his desk in his penthouse and wrote a search criteria document in fountain pen. Your Majesty, said Hester, who had served as his chief of staff for 214 years and was therefore accustomed to unusual behavior. What are you doing? I am compiling intelligence. On? A woman I met last night. Hester waited. Elias continued writing. And what intelligence do you have? She laughs loudly. She dislikes kind of blue. She smells like bergamot. He paused. She also believes my taste in music is objectively incorrect, which I have been thinking about continuously for the past 7 hours. And her name? Bree. Bree what? I don't know. You spent 3 hours with this woman and you don't know her surname? She didn't offer it. I didn't ask. He set down the pen. Distracted. Hester looked at the search criteria document. She looked at Elias. She looked at the cocktail napkin with its phone number, which was sitting next to his pen case, as though it were a treaty document requiring formal review. You have her phone number, she said. Yes. Have you called it? I have not. Have you texted? I have drafted a text. And? It began with, "This is the sovereign of the night court," and I realized that was, perhaps, a lot. Hester sat down. What about the guest list from the masquerade? I checked it this morning. She's not on it. She was at the party but not on the guest list? +1 to a +1. Her name exists approximately 3 degrees removed from any list I have access to. And you can't ask the Ashworths? The Ashworths organized the masquerade to introduce me to their daughter. Asking them to help me find a different woman I met at the introduction party would be catastrophic. I was going to say diplomatically inadvisable. You were going to say catastrophic. I was going to say catastrophic. Thus began what Hester would come to document in her leather-bound notebook as the Initiative, the most comprehensive, resource-intensive, and spectacularly unsuccessful search operation in the history of vampire-human relations. She kept meticulous notes. January 28th, Day 14. The Scent Division had identified 43 women in the metropolitan area who wore bergamot-based perfumes. The Sovereign personally evaluated 6 of them from a distance of 30 feet. None were correct. He said the notes were too commercial. Hester began to question her career choices. February 19th, Day 36. Hester suggested a dating application. The Sovereign was resistant. She pointed out that his current strategy had a success rate of 0%, and that modern humans found each other through algorithms. He asked what an algorithm was. She was not qualified to answer. March 3rd, Day 48. The dating application had been a catastrophe. 3 women filed restraining orders. The Sovereign's profile listed his interests as governance, modal jazz, and finding a specific woman I met at a party. He had listed his age as complicated and his occupation as public sector. One match asked him what he did for fun. He replied, I attend to matters of territorial sovereignty and think about a woman who argued with me about music. She unmatched him. Hester deleted the application. He asked her to reinstall it. She refused. He accepted this with more grace than she expected, which was alarming, because it meant he was planning something. March 22nd, day 67. The Sovereign attended a jazz concert at the Blue Note on the theory that a woman with strong musical opinions might attend jazz events. He sat through 3 sets of fusion jazz, which he hated, without complaint. She was not there. He left a review on what Hester believed was called Yelp. The review was 4 paragraphs long and contained the phrase, "a betrayal of the Coltrane legacy." April 15th, day 91. The perfume lead expanded to include boutique perfumers and custom blend specialists. 11 shops visited. The Sovereign sniffed 37 different bergamot samples and declared each one wrong. A shop assistant asked if he was a sommelier. He said, "Not exactly." She asked him on a date. He declined with such exquisite courtesy that she later described it to her manager as the most polite rejection I've ever experienced. May 8th, day 114. Hester began to wonder if the woman from the Masquerade existed. The Sovereign was unwavering. He said he remembered her with perfect clarity. Hester pointed out that human memories degraded over time and that he might be searching for an idealized version. He looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen in 200 years of service and said, "She told me I was wrong. About music. To my face. At a party. She exists." She had no counter-argument. June 2nd, day 139. The Sovereign asked if Hester thought the woman had forgotten him. Hester told him that no one forgets a 3-hour argument about jazz. He seemed comforted by this. She was not certain it was the right thing to say. "You could still send the text," Hester said, on day 140. "The napkin is right there. The number is right there." The text begins with, "This is the Sovereign of the Night Court." You could not begin it that way. What would I say? "Hello, this is the man you kissed at a party. I have been thinking about you for 4 months. I did not call because I could not determine the appropriate opening statement." That is not a text message. That is a hostage situation. It is a hostage situation of the emotions, Hester. I am going to add that to the notebook. Please do not add that to the notebook. She added it to the notebook. And throughout it all, 44 text message drafts on his phone, addressed to a number scrawled on a cocktail napkin. Not 1 cent. Draft 1, January 15th, 3:47 a.m. "Hello, this is the man from the Masquerade. You left before I could ask your name. I hope this is not inappropriate." Draft 7. "I apologize for the previous 6 drafts, which I did not send. I have been told that beginning a text with, 'This is the Sovereign of the Night Court,' is a lot. I am trying to calibrate." Draft 14. "I listened to Kind of Blue again tonight. You were right, it is not overrated. But you were also wrong in a way I would like to explain in person, if you are willing. If you remember me at all." Draft 31. "I found a woman today who wears bergamot perfume. She was not you. No one is you. I am beginning to understand that this is the problem." Draft 38. "I have been alive for 400 years. I have survived wars, plagues, 3 assassination attempts, and a century in which the only available music was harpsichord. None of those things were as difficult as not sending you a text message." Draft 42. "I don't know if you think about me. I think about you constantly. Not in the way I'm supposed to, not strategically, not with a plan. Just your laugh. Just the way you said, 'objectively incorrect,' like you were delivering a verdict. Just the strand of hair that came loose while you were telling me why Coltrane's later work matters more than his earlier albums, and I agreed with you, and I didn't tell you I agreed because I wanted you to keep arguing." Chapter 3. The Name Tag. 173 days after the Masquerade, Bree Holloway was working a corporate fundraiser at the Meridian Hotel when a man walked into the ballroom and every nerve in her body said, "Run." Not because he was dangerous, because she recognized him. No mask this time. Same jaw, same too-still posture. Same way of entering a room as though the room had been waiting for him, and was only now allowed to start. He saw her at the same moment. She watched it happen, the half-second freeze, the particular quality of a person whose brain has caught up to something their body already knew. He was standing in the entrance, and then he was not moving, and his assistant, a woman Bree hadn't met yet but would come to know very well, said something quiet from behind his left shoulder. He crossed the room. Bree was bent over a seating chart, moving place cards with the focused intensity of someone who was absolutely not panicking. Table 9 can't sit next to Table 12, she was saying to a colleague in a headset. The Vandermeer family and the Ashton Prices had a property dispute, and Mrs. Vandermeer still brings it up at charity auctions. Move 12 to the far wall. She straightened, pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and turned directly into Elias Crane. She was wearing a name tag. "Oh," she said. "Hello, Bree." "You. Me. You're here?" "I'm attending the event." "You're attending my event?" "I appear to be, yes." She stared at him. The mask was gone. The context was gone. The stranger from the masquerade was standing in front of her in a $3,000 suit at a corporate fundraiser she'd been hired to coordinate. "You never told me your name," she said. "You never asked." You... She closed her mouth, opened it. "You're right, I didn't ask." "Would you like to know it now?" "I feel like I should." Elias Crane. "And what do you do, Elias Crane?" He considered this. What he did, technically, was govern a nocturnal sovereignty that had existed since the 14th century and personally oversee the territorial boundaries of 8 court districts. "I'm in administration," he said. His assistant, from somewhere behind him, made a sound that might have been a cough. "Administration," Bree repeated. "Governance, broadly." "Governance, broadly." "Public sector." "You're a government worker?" "In a manner of speaking." She stared at him for 3 seconds, then seemed to decide this wasn't the most pressing issue. "You know what? Fine. Administration. Great." She took a breath. 6 months ago, at the Masquerade, we spent 3 hours arguing about jazz, and then I kissed you near the East Terrace, and then I left, and I gave you my number on a napkin, and you never called. I drafted 44 text messages. You what? I was unable to determine the appropriate opening statement. Elias, the appropriate opening statement is, "Hi, this is the guy from the party." That felt reductive. Reductive? We argued about Coltrane for 2 hours and 40 minutes. The guy from the party does not capture the significance of... Oh my God. She was laughing. Not the professional laugh, not the modulated one she used at events. The real one, the too loud one, the one she'd been told her whole life was a lot. He went still when she laughed, the same way he'd gone still at the Masquerade. Held, as though the sound was something he was trying to memorize. "You studied my face," she said, stopping. "You're doing it right now." "Yes." "Why?" "Because I have been imagining this conversation for 173 days, and the reality is significantly better than any version I prepared." "Elias." "Yes?" "I need to finish this event. It ends at midnight." "I'll find you at midnight." "You said something like that at the Masquerade." "At the Masquerade, you left at 11:53. "I had my reasons." "This time," he said, "I know where you work." His assistant appeared from somewhere behind him. The woman was tall, composed, and had arrived without any sound whatsoever, which Bree found unsettling in a way she couldn't yet articulate. "Your Majesty," the assistant said. "The delegation." "Tell them 5 minutes." "I've told them that 3 times." "Tell them a 4th. The assistant looked at Bree. Bree looked at the assistant. Some unspoken exchange occurred between them that Elias could not decode. "I'll tell them a 4th time," the assistant said, and disappeared, without sound, again. "She materialized," Bree said. "She walked. She's very quiet." "Nobody is that quiet." You would be surprised. At 11:48, 12 minutes before midnight, she was standing near the service corridor when the air behind her went quiet. The specific kind of quiet that happened when someone very still was standing very close. She turned. Elias was leaning against the wall with his hands in his pockets. "You're early," she said. "I'm precisely on time. Midnight is in 12 minutes. I wasn't willing to risk it." The service corridor was ugly. Fluorescent lights, concrete floor, folding chairs stacked against the far wall. He looked exactly the same in this light as he had in the ballroom, which was wrong. Nobody looked good under fluorescence. Nobody except, apparently, Elias Crane, whose skin had the particular quality of someone who had never been sunburned in his entire life. "I need to tell you something," he said. "I need to tell you something first." "All right." "I left the masquerade because it was too much. The arguing and the laughing, and the way you listened to me like what I said mattered. Not because I was impressive, but because I was me. And that scared me more than anything." He was very quiet. "I'm good at leaving," she said. "I've always been good at leaving." "I noticed." "I'm not going to leave this time." "Bree, but I need you to tell me why your assistant materialized out of thin air, and why you're cold to the touch, and why you said 200 years at the masquerade with the cadence of someone who meant it literally." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, the amber ring was wider. "I am the sovereign of the night court," he said, which is a polite way of saying that I am a vampire, I am approximately 400 years old, and I have been searching for you with the full resources of a nocturnal sovereignty because you told me my taste in music was objectively incorrect, and I have never recovered. She was quiet for a long time. The event was winding down behind them, glasses clearing, conversations shrinking. "Vampire," she said. "Yes, 400 years, give or take." "And the cold?" "My body runs at approximately 15 degrees Celsius. It is a feature." "And the eyes?" "They change when I am in proximity to something that matters. They changed at the masquerade, when I kissed you." "Yes." "And the not breathing?" "I don't need to." "You don't need to?" "It's a voluntary action. I sometimes forget." "That's not the reassuring answer you think it is." She looked at him in the fluorescent light. 400 years old, a vampire king. The man she'd kissed at a masquerade and run from because she was afraid of how much she'd felt. "Okay," she said. He blinked. "Okay." "I have questions. A lot of questions. You're going to answer all of them. Starting with, is kind of blue actually overrated, or did I just start a diplomatic incident by insulting a vampire king?" The corner of his mouth moved. Surprise. And underneath it, the particular devastation of a man who had been looking for something for 6 months and was only now allowing himself to believe he might have found it. "You started a crisis," he said. "My court's official position on kind of blue has been unchanged since 1959. You have destabilized centuries of musical policy." "Good," she said. "Someone needed to." Chapter 4. The Arrangement. 3 things Bree learned in the first month of whatever this was. 1. Elias Crane did not eat. "Not even coffee?" "I drink coffee." "You drink coffee but you don't eat?" "I enjoy the ritual, the warmth." "You don't actually taste it, do you?" He was quiet 1 beat too long. "I taste the temperature." 2. Their relationship only existed after dark. "You can't do daytime." "I have a scheduling conflict with daylight." Is it a "you will literally die" conflict, or an "it's inconvenient" conflict? Prolonged exposure to direct sunlight would, at my age, result in significant discomfort. Burns, rapid, difficult to heal. So when I left the masquerade before sunrise, I was grateful, for different reasons than you assumed. 3. She met Hester properly at a diner, alone. Bree had told Elias she wanted to talk to his assistant without him present, and he had agreed without argument, which told her something important about him. He was not a man who needed to control the conversation. He was a man who needed to be in the room. The fact that he let her leave it said more than any of his 44 unsent text messages. Hester had served Elias for 214 years. She was 400 years old. She stirred her tea precisely 3 times, did not drink it, and set down the spoon. "You don't drink the tea," Bree observed. "I enjoy the ritual, the warmth." He said the same thing about coffee. "Where do you think he learned it?" Bree studied her. "Has he done this before?" The searching. "There have been interests," Hester said carefully. "In 4 centuries, there have been moments when his attention was drawn, but I have never seen him write a search criteria document in fountain pen. I have never seen him voluntarily use a dating application. I have certainly never seen him sit through a delegation meeting in which an ambassador insulted his territorial policy and respond with, and I am quoting, 'That is an interesting perspective, but can we revisit this later? I have somewhere to be.'" He said that? To the Castellan ambassador, who had traveled 600 miles, who was mid-sentence. What did the ambassador do? He was so shocked he agreed. Bree laughed, the surprised, too loud one. Hester watched her with an expression that was old and careful and hopeful. "He described your laugh to me," Hester said. "On the morning after the masquerade, he said it was the most structurally sound laugh he had ever heard." Structurally sound. He describes everything in terms of architecture. What else did he say? That you called a Krug 2008 fine, I guess. That you had strong opinions about public transportation. That you kissed him at 11:47 near the East Terrace, and that he has not been the same since. Hester paused. He said that last part very quietly. I almost didn't hear it. Bree looked at the table. I gave him my number, on a napkin. I know, and he never called. He drafted 44 text messages. The first one began with, "This is the sovereign of the night court," and I told him that was, perhaps, a lot. He agreed. He could not determine an alternative. 400 years of diplomatic correspondence, and he could not write a text. That's pathetic. The word you're looking for is pathetic. I am fond of him, and I have served him faithfully for 2 centuries, and the situation was profoundly pathetic. Bree laughed again. Hester almost smiled, the vampire version, which was a slight tension at the corners of the mouth that carried more warmth than any full human grin. She solved his district scheduling problem on a Tuesday. He'd mentioned offhandedly that the 8 district governors submitted quarterly reports but had been arriving at overlapping times for decades, creating bottlenecks that resulted in territorial disputes and, on one occasion, a duel. "They're double booking," she said. "They are, apparently, incapable of coordinating their own calendars." "They don't need to coordinate. You need a staggered schedule with buffer windows and a central intake point. It's the same problem as vendor load-in at a conference venue." She drew it on a napkin. 4 quadrants, 8 time slots, buffer zones, a rotation that prevented any 2 feuding governors from arriving within the same hour. 7 minutes. He stared at the napkin. "This is elegant," he said. "It's a napkin. I have been managing this problem for 90 years. With what system? I have been telling them to stop arriving at the same time. Elias, that's not a system. That's a request. I am the sovereign. My requests are ignored, apparently, for 90 years. He folded the napkin carefully, put it in his jacket pocket next to the fountain pen. I am going to frame this napkin. You are not going to frame a napkin. I am absolutely going to frame a napkin. Where would you even frame a napkin? In my study, between the portrait of the 3rd sovereign and the Treaty of 1847. You're going to put a napkin next to a treaty? The napkin solved more than the treaty did. He learned the rules of her world. Text before showing up. Don't materialize in rooms. Don't listen to her heartbeat and comment on it. You're nervous. Stop doing that. Your pulse elevated by, I said stop. She learned the rules of his. No sunlight. No invitations revoked. No asking about feeding in public, because the question was, in vampire society, roughly equivalent to asking someone about their bathroom habits at a dinner party. You just compared feeding to going to the bathroom. I said the question was, the act itself is. He pinched the bridge of his nose. The analogy was imprecise. You're blushing. I am physiologically incapable of blushing. You're doing the vampire version. You went still and your jaw is doing the thing. My jaw does not do a thing. It absolutely does a thing. It goes tight right here. She reached up and touched the muscle at the hinge of his jaw. His skin was cool under her fingertips. He went very, very still. The kind of still where she became aware, suddenly and specifically, that she was touching a predator. Sorry, she said, pulling her hand back. Don't be sorry. His voice was lower, the real mode. I was not expecting that. The touching? The fact that I wanted you to keep doing it. She filed that away for later. She filed a lot of things away for later. The way his hands went still when she was close. The way the ambient temperature of the room dropped by 1/2 degree when he was agitated, as though his body was a weather system, and she was learning to read the forecast. The way he drank terrible gas station coffee with an expression of genuine contentment that she never saw him wear with anything else. Why that coffee? She asked one night. You can't even taste it. I can taste the temperature, and the bitterness, faintly, and, he paused. It reminds me of something. Of what? I don't know. Something from when I was young. Before. I can't quite. He held the cup between both hands. The body remembers things the mind has lost. 400 years, and this particular flavor of terrible coffee makes me feel like a person. She didn't say anything. She just sat with him in the feeling of it. The 400-year-old vampire king who didn't know why bad coffee made him feel human, holding the cup like a prayer to someone he couldn't remember. She'd started staying later, past midnight, past 1, past the hour when the city shifted, and the only people awake were night shift workers and vampires and one event coordinator who had discovered that 2 a.m. was when Elias was most himself. His managed mode, the polished sovereign, fell away at 2 a.m. What replaced it was someone drier, stranger, more honest. Someone who admitted to disliking 5 of his 8 district governors, who had an inexplicable fondness for terrible gas station coffee, and who, when she asked him what he missed most about being human, said without hesitation, sleeping. The particular stupidity of unconsciousness. I've been awake for 4 centuries, and I am exhausted by knowing everything all the time. You don't know everything. I know most things. You didn't know what an algorithm was. I know all the important things. You thought Kind of Blue was overrated. I know all the important things except that one. He showed her the search criteria document on a Wednesday, the original, fountain pen on heavy cream stock. Musical opinions, strong, she read aloud. Specifically regarding modal jazz, the later Coltrane catalog, and the use of the word overrated in reference to Kind of Blue. She looked up. You wrote this the morning after the masquerade? At approximately 6 a.m. And the last line? Kissing, redacted. See Sovereign's private memorandum, eyes only. There is a Sovereign's private memorandum about kissing me? There is a Sovereign's private memorandum about many things. That one is classified. Classified. At the highest level. What level is that? Above Hester. Nothing is above Hester. This is above Hester. She laughed. He watched her laugh. She was beginning to understand that the watching was not performance, It was involuntary. Something in him reset when she laughed, like a compass finding north. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Anything." When I left the masquerade, I sat in the back of a cab and I put my hand over my mouth because I was smiling so hard my face hurt, and I was afraid the driver would think I was insane. He was very still. "And then I went home," she said, "and I sat on my couch, and I thought, he's going to call. He has my number. He's going to call." And then he didn't call. And he didn't call the next day, and the day after that. Bree. And after a week, I told myself it was fine, that it was a party, that people kiss strangers at parties and don't call, that I was being ridiculous for expecting a man I'd known for 3 hours to remember me. I remembered everything. I know that now, but I didn't know it then. And do you know what the worst part was? The worst part wasn't that you didn't call. The worst part was that I wasn't surprised, because I am always the woman who doesn't get called. The silence in her apartment was the kind that has weight. His hand was on the couch between them and she could feel the cold radiating from it. Not unpleasant, just present, the way weather is present. "I am going to say something," he said, "and I need you to hear it as it is intended, which is with 400 years of precision and absolutely no diplomatic hedging. Okay? You are the most memorable person I have ever met, and I have met everyone. You haven't met everyone. I have met kings, queens, 2 popes, and a man who was technically both. None of them told me my taste in music was wrong. None of them laughed the way you laugh. None of them called a Krug 2008 fine, I guess, with the energy of someone who had strong opinions and no interest in performing otherwise. You are not the woman who doesn't get called. You are the woman who is worth 173 days and 44 unsent text messages and a 4-paragraph Yelp review of a jazz concert I attended on the off chance you might be there." She blinked, hard, several times. "The Yelp review was about me?" "Everything has been about you." It was on the walk home from one of these late conversations that she kissed him again. Corner of her block, broken streetlight, 2 a.m. "I am calculating something," she said. "What?" "The odds that if I kissed you right now, you would be too surprised to breathe." He didn't blink. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. "I have stopped breathing," he observed. "I can see that." She kissed him under the broken streetlight, cold mouth, cool hands on her jaw, the absolute control of someone who could break her and chose at every moment not to. When she pulled back, his eyes were amber. "Kind of Blue is a masterpiece," she said. "And you were wrong, and I'm going to keep telling you until you admit it. I look forward to being corrected." It was during one of these late nights, her apartment, her couch, her feet under a blanket, that she found the invitation. His jacket was on the arm of the couch. She was cold. She reached for it, and the envelope fell out. Heavy cream stock, embossed seal. She opened it. "The Ashworth Masquerade, commemorating the formal introduction of Sovereign Elias Crane and Lady Genevieve Ashworth, in accordance with the Treaty of Territorial Consolidation for the purpose of arranged union." She read it 3 times. The masquerade, the party where she'd walked in as a +1 to a +1, stood in a corner with champagne she couldn't afford, and accidentally spent 3 hours arguing about jazz with the most beautiful man she'd ever seen. That party had been an arranged marriage introduction, for him, and a woman named Genevieve Ashworth. Elias came back from the kitchen with his coffee. He saw her face. He saw the invitation. He went still. "Bree, you were supposed to meet someone else." "Yes, but—" "The masquerade. The whole masquerade. It was for your arranged—" "The introduction was arranged. I had not yet—" "I was an accident." The word hit the room. She heard it hang there, watched his face change when he understood what she meant. Not that the meeting was unplanned, that she was unplanned. The wrong woman at the wrong party. You were never an accident, he said. I was literally not supposed to be there. I crashed the introduction party for your arranged bride, and you let me think. I didn't let you think anything. I met you, and everything else stopped mattering. There is a woman, a real woman, Genevieve Ashworth, who has been waiting for 6 months while you searched for the random stranger you kissed at her introduction party. He was quiet. When he spoke, his voice was the real one, low, stripped, 4 centuries of precision behind it. Genevieve Ashworth is the heir to the Ashworth court. The proposed union would consolidate 2 territorial claims and resolve a boundary dispute ongoing since 1847. It is, by every political measure, the correct decision. And I met you, and you argued with me about jazz, and I have not been able to think about boundary disputes since. That's not how this works. There are politics. I know what there are. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid. Of everything she'd expected, evasion, 400 years of diplomatic deflection, she had not expected that. Of what? Of this. Of you looking at me the way you are looking at me right now, as though I have confirmed something you already believed about yourself. The precision hurt. Because he was right. Because her whole life, Bree Holloway had been the impressive but not memorable one. The one who organized the party but wasn't on the guest list. The one who did the work but wasn't the reason anyone came. I need you to leave, she said. He stood. She watched him struggle with the most human impulse, the desire to fix something by staying when staying was the wrong answer. I will not come to you again unless you ask, he said. He left. The apartment went quiet. The specific kind of quiet that happened when a room that had contained a vampire suddenly didn't. Her phone buzzed. A text from Hester. He has broken the arrangement. I thought you should know. He told the Ashworth court 40 minutes ago. By letter. In fountain pen. Another text. The political cost will be considerable. He does not care. He has not cared about anything political in approximately 173 days. Another. The letter read, and I am quoting, I met someone at your introduction masquerade. I am aware of the irony. I am proceeding in a different direction. Another. He is a deeply strange man who writes like a bureaucrat and feels like a catastrophe. And he has just destroyed a century of diplomatic work because a woman at a party told him his taste in jazz was wrong. One more. I would like you to know that I have been his assistant for 214 years, and this is the first time I have voluntarily contacted a human about his personal affairs. Please don't make me regret it. Chapter 5. The Dawn. He came to her door at 5:13 a.m. She knew the time because she'd been awake since he left, sitting on the couch in the dark, watching the clock the way she watched clocks at events, tracking minutes, managing the schedule, keeping everything under control, because control was the thing she was best at, and control was the thing that kept her from having to feel anything too large. One knock. She opened the door. He looked terrible. Not in the way humans look terrible, in the way vampires look terrible. Too still, too pale, the managed mode gone entirely, replaced by something raw. 4 centuries of composure stripped to a man standing in a hallway with dawn pressing against the corridor windows behind him. It's almost sunrise, she said. Yes. You came to my door at dawn? I needed you to see something. He held out his phone. The Notes app. A document titled Drafts. Do not send. She scrolled. Dozens of messages, addressed to a number scrawled on a cocktail napkin at a masquerade. Not one sent. She'd seen the key entries in Hester's notebook, but these were his voice, his 3:47 a.m. honesty. Draft 1. Hello, this is the man from the masquerade. You left before I could ask your name. I hope this is not inappropriate. Draft 7. I apologize for the previous 6 drafts. I have been told that beginning a text with, "This is the sovereign of the Night Court," is a lot. I am trying to calibrate. Draft 14. I listened to Kind of Blue again tonight. You were right. But you were also wrong in a way I would like to explain in person, if you remember me at all. Draft 42. I don't know if you think about me. I think about you constantly. Not strategically, not with a plan. Just your laugh. Just the way you said objectively incorrect, like you were delivering a verdict. Just the strand of hair that came loose while you were telling me why Coltrane's later work matters more. And I agreed with you, and I didn't tell you because I wanted you to keep arguing. She looked up from the phone. You kept the napkin, she said. I kept the napkin. With my number and no name. A number and no name. For 173 days. He paused. 44 drafts. Not 1 cent. Why? I didn't know what to say. I have given speeches to courts and delegations for 4 centuries. I have negotiated treaties in 6 languages. I could not figure out how to send a text message to a woman who liked jazz. The dawn was coming. She could see it, the light shifting from gray to gold. Actively dangerous to the man standing in front of her. Come inside, she said. Bree, Elias. Come inside before the sun comes up. He stepped across the threshold. She closed the door and the apartment went dark, and in the dark she could hear the silence where his heartbeat should have been. She turned on a single lamp, the low one. In its dim warmth he looked, not less like a vampire, more like one. The shadows found the architecture of his face, the particular stillness that was less a choice than a condition. I wasn't an accident, she said. You were never an accident. I was at the wrong party. I was a +1 to a +1. I wasn't on the guest list. I wasn't supposed to be there. And yet you were the only person in the room who told me the truth about anything. He was close enough that she could feel the temperature difference. You told me my music taste was wrong. You told me the champagne was overpriced. You told me the wallpaper was genuinely hideous, which it was, and which no one in 200 years had the nerve to say. 200 years of bad wallpaper. 200 years of people being too polite to mention it. I'm not polite. No. His voice did the thing, the drop, the real mode. You are honest, and I have not been honest with anyone in a very long time. And when you argued with me about jazz at a party where I was supposed to be performing the role of a sovereign meeting his intended bride, you made me realize that I was tired of performing, of the role, of the particular loneliness of being agreed with by everyone in every room for 200 years. She was quiet. I fell in love with you because you disagreed with me, he said, which is a completely unreasonable basis for a 400-year emotional crisis. And yet here we are. Here we are. In your apartment, at dawn. While I am technically committing a diplomatic catastrophe by being here instead of managing the fallout from breaking an arranged union. Because you are more important than a boundary dispute. And I will say that as many times as necessary until you believe it. She laughed, the too loud one. He closed his eyes when she laughed. I want to do something, she said. And I need you to tell me if you're able to. Anything. Don't say anything before you know what it is. I have been saying anything to you since the Masquerade. I've simply been saying it in unsent text messages. Hester told me that feeding is intimate. You said it was complicated. I'm asking you to trust me with the complicated part. He was absolutely still. If I do this, he said, his voice lower, the real mode dropped past casual. You will feel me. Afterward. Not thoughts. A pull. An awareness. When I'm near, when I'm not. A blood bond. You've been reading. Hester gave me a pamphlet. Hester gave you a... He stopped. Of course she did. It was very thorough. There were bullet points. I would like, he said, very precisely, as though filing a formal declaration with his own heart, to accept. She offered her wrist. He took it with both hands, gently, the way someone holds something they're afraid of breaking. His thumb pressed lightly against her pulse, and she saw the moment he heard it. His eyes went amber, his jaw tightened. Every line of his body said predator in a language older than speech. He bent his head, and the world went warm. Not pain, just warmth. The particular warmth of being known, of someone hearing the thing under the thing, the heartbeat under the heartbeat. She put her hand on the back of his head. His hair was soft. She held him there. He lifted his head, a trace of red at his lip, eyes still amber, still too bright. Then he did something she hadn't expected. He raised his own wrist to his mouth, and his fangs, she saw them clearly now, just the points, broke the skin. A thin line of red, darker than hers, almost black. He held it out. For the bond to form, he said, very quietly, it goes both ways. She took his wrist. His skin was cold under her lips. The taste was not what she expected, not iron, something older, deeper, like wine that had been aging in a cellar no one had opened in centuries. She let go. He let go. They looked at each other, and there it was, a pull, settling into the base of her chest like gravity. Not words, not thoughts, just an awareness, a space that recognized his. Well, she said. Your blood, he said, with the particular devastation of a man who has just had 4 centuries of composure dismantled by a single experience. Tastes like bergamot. She burst out laughing, the too loud one. He smiled, a real smile, not the managed one, the one that 400 years had been keeping in reserve for someone specific. Stay, he said. It wasn't a command, it was the smallest word he knew, said like a man who had been practicing it in 44 unsent text messages for 6 months. I'm staying, she said, but we're revisiting the Coltrane conversation. I wasn't finished. You are never finished. No, I'm not. Outside, the sun came up. Inside, a vampire and a woman who was not supposed to have been at his party sat on her couch in the ordinary dark of a morning she'd made safe for him, and argued about jazz. He was wrong, she told him. He did not recover. He never wanted to.